Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead. Hope you're having a good day, because this is a beautiful day in coastal North Carolina. And I'm going to talk about topping peppers today. Seems to be a lot of back and forth, whether it's good, it's bad, if it's worth it. You know, I've kind of developed my own method for a lot of gardenings over the years, and this is something that I do. This is said pepper bed in question. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, every plant in here has been topped at some point in the life cycle. We've got a lot going on in here. Looks like we need to get a little bit of water. It's been really dry, which is unfortunate. We've got peppers growing, so everything seems to be good. But I want to show you an example of what topping a plant will do. This is not directly related, but this is a very good thing for people to see and understand. And what it's called, plants exhibit something called apical dominance. I believe I'm saying, yeah, I think it's apical dominance. And what that means basically is the top of the plant's called the apex. And the apex is, you know, where it's going to put most of its growth, you know, its energy into it. So as you may be aware of, I grow bonsai trees, been growing them for many years, longer than I'd like to admit. I started when I was really young, but here's one that I topped, and I'll show you what it looked like before, well, as best I can before, how we topped it, and then how it's growing. So this is a trident maple tree. This one's about 20 years old. It's been in my possession for about 4 years. And when I got it, I've been saving this for this exact video. This was the top to the tree. So you can see if we can get it on there, how it was on, like so. And it was just a straight pencil going all the way up. And you can see it had a lot of growth at the top. And then we cut it this year. And when I cut it, the only thing that none of this was here. This is really important. None of this was here. The only thing was this, and it was just one branch going all the way up, no limbs, nothing. So once we cut it, what happened was we cut it at the appropriate time, which is very important to remember. And then when we cut it, all the energy from the roots, all the nutrients came up and said, uh-oh, there's nowhere to go. So then it started pushing out all of its growth. Now I understand this is totally different from growing vegetables, because we're not waiting to harvest anything in this aspect. We're just waiting for a branch to come. But what happened is, even though we topped it and it started to pull more branches down, which is the whole design of this, the whole point of it in this art is to create movement in the trunk and develop farther down on the pre-existing trunk, because this was totally bare. We then had all of this come back out. So you can see how much more it's grown here. And this is the apex of the tree. What the tree thinks is the apex. In reality, this is going to be the apex eventually. So we'll be doing this multiple times, but it pushes the growth. Even though it pushed it out down here, it still does it here. So what we do is we're going to wait for it to thicken up a little bit, and then we'll cut it again. And then we'll start keeping this process going, more and more building all around that tree. So in that aspect of the plant world, it's super common to do, and trees definitely exhibit the apical dominance. I'm excited to get rid of this. I've been having it sit out for a while just so I could do this video. So we'll throw it in the fire pit. There it is, it's done. But now we go back to the peppers. And I know there's a lot of people that say, like, hey, I don't do the peppers because there's no point, slows down the growth. In which I kind of do agree with that. I think it does slow down the growth, but again, I said in a video probably about a month ago that these peppers, in theory, will be growing in my yard, in my garden, for months and months and months. I mean, if everything goes according to plan, we won't take these plants down probably until September, I mean, maybe even October. So that's just a long growth period. And you got to remember, I'm in coastal North Carolina, so that's where we get, you know, long, hot summers. Our falls are fairly mild. Our springs are fairly mild. until winter hits so we can keep it growing. But I want to get down low and kind of show you. I'll explain to you how I did it, and then I'll show you kind of what the benefit of it is and why I started doing it. Down low here, you can kind of see all of these plants have been topped. This one was actually topped really late. So what I do when I plant is I'll take the plant and I'll stick it in the ground, and then I immediately just pinch the top couple leaves off. And so this one kind of doesn't count because it actually did get forgotten. But even though we did it late, you can already see how it's branching like that. And so if we come in here, you can see all of these have done the same thing. I'm trying to find one that's a little bit easier for you to see. Well, let's just make it easier. How's that? We'll pull a couple leaves. So you can see in here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 main stems. And so what that does is if you look, and then they all branch out again, and all of this branching is done all on the plants, you know, it did it itself, but you can see all of the buds. I'm trying to keep it focused on one plant all the way around. There's just buds everywhere. So it was slower to create these buds, but the thought process is, in the long run, this is a long run game, we're gonna get more peppers off of these plants. So before I cut back to my beautiful face, you can see we've got a pepper here, and then we've got buds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. We have another pepper, so that's 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34 on one plant, 34 buds. I wanted to point out the bell pepper specifically on that one, because just because we have 34 buds does not mean, unless I'm mistaken and something crazy happens this year, that there's going to be 34 peppers that come off of that plant. That's not how it works. But the thought process is more buds means more opportunities for more peppers. And remember, you have to remember, we're playing the long game. I did a video a while back, a couple years ago, about pulling the flowers off of your pepper plants, like the first crop of flowers off of them. And so this topping kind of works in conjunction with that, because basically when I put my peppers out, there's one stem, then there's a cluster of flowers at top. I just pinch the whole thing off, the top 2, 3 leaves, how many ever's on there, with all of the flowers. I just pull that off. And that kind of acts as doing both, pulling the first crop of flowers, which means that the plant can focus more on its roots, and then topping it, which means it's going to force that plant to branch out. This is something that I do because I like to do it. I've done both in the past. One year I did a side-by-side, and what I found typically was the pepper would grow straight up, and then it would get so heavy it would just kind of topple over. So this year I put a couple stakes in. You can see, like, there's a stake here. Nothing's tied to it yet. I really want to see how, like, if I need to really tie these plants down. I'm hoping I don't, because it's kind of a pain. And this is the first year that I've actually monocropped a, other than the trellis back here, that doesn't count, a pepper bed. And I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. They're supporting each other. There's still airflow in here. You can see nothing crazy is going on as far as like plant spacing or anything. We spaced them out accordingly. They're about 8 inches to a foot apart. And then you can see like this, so this plant back here is a good indication. It's already got a couple peppers on it. Let's go over and look at that plant and see. So it is starting to lay over, and if I'm not mistaken, it was starting to lay over before, but it's got a couple peppers on it, so we can easily stake it up. But you can see that the plant, because it has branched out that way, is actually starting to grow back up towards the light, and it will straighten itself out, especially once you pull a pepper off and you relieve that pressure. And again, bell peppers are really heavy. When you come over here to these, so like this one here, is that's a jalapeno, and it's not going to be as heavy. Now, one thing I've noticed, especially with like jalapenos and stuff, one year I had a plant and it didn't really do a whole lot, and I just kind of left it to its own devices. And I came back the day before our first frost and I pulled that plant, and I pulled like almost 50 jalapenos off of one plant. And it seems every year the way that they work is I come in and we'll get harvest, and then if we decide to leave them, it seems like they kind of rebound, they come back and they put on. But because we topped our peppers and we have more branching, I feel like we're giving it more opportunities. Now I know, I believe somebody in the comments said Haas Tools say they don't top their peppers. Now I would not recommend coming in here. You know, if you could grow these perennial, and when I say perennial, I mean you leave them in your garden year round, not you pull them up and put them in the garage, but you can leave them out here year round, then I could totally see topping these consistently. And that would look something like this. You could just come in here and then just snip, 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 snip all the tops off. I mean, you know, you're just talking about, if you just snip that off right there, that can be enough, where you can come down and snip farther and then it'll cause it to branch. But you can see, for instance, like this plant, I mean, it's branching on its own. And that's off of one pepper plant. So like after it's been topped. So that being said, are you still going to get branching if you don't top? Absolutely. But you're going to get one stalk with branches on it, where now I've created on each plant, I don't know how many, it looks like 6. Look at this guy. Look at that. You see him? A little turd. He gone. So that's something to keep an eye out for apparently now. So, you know, you've created this almost bush. I think that's the word that I want to use here. We want it to bush out. And so that's what I do, because it stays in the ground longer. Now, there's a lot of plants I would not do that to. But if your indeterminate tomatoes are getting too long, you can top them. They'll branch out. You can do it with green beans. If they start going over your trellis and back down, you can top them. They'll branch out. Trying to think of anything else in my garden that I have right now. Really seeing anything off the bat. Determinate tomatoes you don't top. You can do squashes. So squashes is another one. If we come over here to this Seminole pumpkin, actually, yeah, this Seminole pumpkin's good, but I don't want to use it as an example because it's not big enough yet. I'm going to bring you over to our volunteer Seminole pumpkin, and so you can see there's one, but here's another one that's easier to get to. So we've got this Seminole pumpkin that's growing out, and you can see how long it is at this point. If I came, and I wish I could do it and like you could instantly see the effects, but that's not how it works in this world. I can cut it here. Let me see, get it right there, and then the rest of this plant would bush out at some extent. Now I know for certain trees, for bonsai and stuff, I know how they're gonna rebranch and stuff like that, because I've been, you know, I've got one jade plant. I'll take you over there and show you. I've been growing it for 15 years. It's been in a pot in my possession for 15 years, and when I got it, it was about 7 years old. So at this point, it's 22 years old. I realize where I cut it, I know how it's going to branch. And, you know, a lot of you may be having jades and stuff like that if you want to do it. So I'll show you how this one's growing. For instance, here's the said tree, and you can see how it's starting to get overgrown up here. And you see how it's branching. So if I clip it here, it'll branch. But let me take you around the back so I don't break my knee. Lean it over. If I come over here, like I know if this one, the branches will come out on top of these leaves. So if I want it to branch out down here and I want it to branch this way, I'd cut it here. If I want it to branch that way, I'd cut it here. And you can already see that right there. You have to understand, this is something I've been doing for many, many years, so I understand how that works. I haven't really been topping, I take that back. I cut those limbs 4 times a year and watch them grow. These I cut once and then just kind of let them grow. So it's a little bit different of a situation, but you can see how you can kind of get used to the growth patterns of a plant. And that's kind of what we're doing here. So, you know, the question is, should you top a pepper plant? I'm gonna say if you want to top it, but I would not go around topping it now. If you get a plant, for instance, and let's say you've got a nice season, you get a good harvest, and then come July, it starts to just kind of give out a little bit. Top it and see what happens. What have you got to lose? You might be pleasantly surprised, you may not. You got a couple plants, top one, don't top the other, and see what happens. But I will say, anytime you trim a plant, you are slowing the growth down to some extent.